Hey everyone, it's Travis speaking. Last couple of videos, we were starting to take a look at in-place massing for conceptual masses, and we went over some of the tools like creating the different forms and how you can edit those within the project environment using some of your existing scene context. So now what I want to get into is how we can start to combine some of the tools for the masses that we've already got in place and with some of these ones that we've already got in here for as far as the in-place massing and the mass family. So you can see I've got the one that I've already placed in here, and then we've got this one here which has a number of forms in it. So what I want to show, I guess, is how we can join geometry and cut geometry using other in-place masses, but also the behaviors, because there are nuances to them that can be a little bit frustrating when you're first starting out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go back into a new conceptual mass, and we're going to cut out a bit of the roof up here. So I'm going to go back in here and say in-place mass, and this is just, I'm just going to say that this is roof void. Okay, and in this I'm not actually going to create a void form, but I'm going to create a form that we can use to cut the geometry, and it is essentially going to make a void at the end of this. So I'm going to hit set and just grab this top plane here, and then I'm going to go in and grab my pick lines option. I'm going to put in a small offset. We'll say that this is going to be 16 inches. And then I'm going to use my view cube to get to the top orthographic view here. And all I'm going to do is just go around to the lines, and I'm just going to put in essentially what's going to become the depth of my parapet. Okay, so just throwing a few lines in here, and we'll split this one right here. So we have two segments, and then I'm just going to come around and clean up all these corners. Okay, so that happens pretty quick. And now you can see we've got this full line here. So again, I'm going to say create form and make this as a solid, and you can see it extrudes it up. So in here I'm going to grab my z-axis, and I'm just going to drop it down a little bit until I can see that dimension in here. So in here I'm going to make that, we'll make that 2 feet. And actually let's make that a little bit higher. Let's go 4 feet. Okay, so now I got a little bit more depth in that, and you can see how it's graphically kind of getting a little bit strange here. So we know we've got geometry intersecting with the other geometry. So now that that's done, I'm more or less ready to get out of this specific mass. So I'll say finish mass. I don't need to apply any material to it because it's not going to become anything existing. All right, so now you can see I've got the conceptual mass family, and I've got this guy right here. So we can go up to the join option, or sorry, to the cut option. So when you do a cut, it's essentially like using a Boolean subtract if you have any experience using 3D modeling in AutoCAD. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the form that I want to keep, and then I'm going to go grab the form that I'm going to use to cut. Okay, so now you can see that there's this white spot inside where we've removed that geometry, but it's only happened on this one individual form. And notice that I'm carrying out this command in the project environment, not within the massing itself. Okay, so I'll do that again with my in-place mass, and we should see that come out. Let's try that again. So cut, I'm gonna grab the outside one and then this one, and now you can see it's removed that geometry as well from our in-place mass. So I'm not overly concerned about what's going to happen inside. I just wanted to remove that geometry for the time being to show you how that behaves. Now I'm going to go back in to another one here, and I'm just going to create another form that I can join to one of these. So let's go back to our massing in site. We'll say in-place mass, and we'll say that this is going to be like some sort of skylight. Okay, so we'll call this skylight, and we'll hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my reference plane to be this face here. So let's see if I can get that one. Okay, so that's my reference plane that I'm drawing on. And I'm just going to draw in an arc that goes from that center point. So let's go, well, let's just span across. Okay, so make that a full kind of dome. and then I'm going to grab a line and close that off. All right, so now that I've got that closed profile here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new solid form from that guy, and I'm going to drag that all the way across to the front face. So if I miss that, I can use my align tool, and actually that's on a bit of an angle. So let's grab, actually let's see if we can maybe grab that angle here. Okay, so you can see by getting that angled face, it's actually angled the end of this one as well. So that's a little bit cooler feature. So we'll do that on this side as well. And we'll see if we can get those on angles now. Okay, perfect. So this guy here, we're gonna call that, we're gonna make that schematic office as well, but it is a separate form from these other ones. So you're seeing this line work in here. So I'll hit finish mass on this one, and we're still seeing where that original mass was showing. So if we don't wanna see that, it's not going to really matter, because at the end of the day, the masses aren't going to be there when we're all done. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is use my join option, and this one, the order doesn't really matter. We can just say, hey, you and you come together, and now you can see that line work is essentially, it's not totally gone, but as far as the graphics are concerned, this is all one monolithic form. Okay. So we do have the option of changing this. We could drag it out or what have you. The angle will stay the same. Okay, so you can still see that angle's there, but it is using this form to cut this. So when you do a join, if there is intersecting geometry, it's going to do that Boolean subtract, but also join it up. So let's just make sure we hit join again. Okay, so we're all good. Now, if this wasn't joined, okay, let's try it. We'll go up to join and say unjoin geometry. We'll click this one and click this one. And now what you're seeing is there's no definitive line here. Okay, and you'll see this when you join walls to floors or any type of geometry in Revit. When you see that there's no line work, it means that you need to create that join to get that right graphical look. So let me just go back. I'm gonna do that again. And then now you see that black line coming down the curve. Okay, so that's some of the model behavior. It looks like when I did that though, this guy ended up going away. So let's just go back. We'll do a couple undos here. All right, so that's what I'm after. Now, if we did want to, we could take this and hide it, but I don't really care, because at the end of the day, this is going to be going away anyway. All right. So another thing, going back to the elevations, when we went to our elevations, we created these levels. Okay, so these levels are going to serve a pretty fancy purpose here in a second. If I go back into 3D, there is a massing and site tab. We can go to this and go to floor by face. Okay, so right now we're not seeing any of those mass floors in here, because we have to grab the elements and then say mass floors. So all of these will have that option available when you select these. So if I grab my the warehouse, right, I might not want all of the floors. Maybe I just want say like 1, 3, and 5 or something. So what I'll do is click on mass floors. You can come to it up here, or you can click on the instance properties. You can see it in here as well. So I'll put in 1, 3, and 5 on this one. I'm not even sure that 5 intersects this guy, but we'll do that one anyway. So when you do that, you see now we've got these 2 levels in here. Okay, so these can now be used to create floors. So let's go check that out. If we go back to our architecture tab, we'll go and expand the floors. And this isn't something that we cover in fundamentals all that often, but it's a really great feature for the beginning of a project. So I'll say floor by face. And then if I hover over these floors that have come in here, okay, it's going to put them in. We won't see them right off the bat, but we choose the floor that we want. So these will say generic 12-inch. We can always go back and change these after. So I'm going to say 3-inch lightweight concrete and say create floor. And now you can see that there's actually a system family in there that we can use moving forward. So this one probably isn't going to be that type, so we can go back and change it after to something that makes more sense. We probably want a slab. I'm going to leave it as this generic 12-inch for the time being. but you'll notice that that floor goes to the outside face. Okay, so when we create the walls in the same manner, we're going to want to pay attention to that. So let's take a look at what we can do over here on these guys. I'm going to select these ones as well, and we'll go back and hit mass floors. And these ones, I'm just going to select all of these by hitting shift and then just checking one. We'll say okay, and now you can see these floors going through all of our forms that we've selected, even this one here. So I don't really want that one in there in that little parapet projection thing. It's these guys here that I want. So I'm also going to change this back to wireframe. Oh no, that's not. Let's try that with hidden line. Okay, so I'll be able to see the floors that I want to create. So again, we're going to go back to floor, floor by face. I'm going to choose the lightweight concrete again. So if I grab that one, that one, that one, and that one, do that over here as well on this form. All right, and then we can say create floor, and we're going to get these guys. Now, I said I didn't want this floor, right? So if I click that after the fact, and we say edit boundary, we can come in here, and just like we always do, we can take these parts of the sketch out, hit the green check mark, and now I just have that floor over here on the top. Okay, so it will cover the whole perimeter. But here's the great part about this. If I go in and I change my mass, then I can do an update to that floor after the fact. Okay, so watch what I mean by this. I'm going to select my mass, and we can just do quick edits here using the grips. So let's see. If we just drag that one out a little bit, you can see what's happened here. These floors are now short of that face. So if we select that floor, we can say update to face, and it sends it all the way over to the edge. Same thing on this one here. Where's our floor? Update to face. Let's change that to wireframe so we can see this guy. Okay, so it does a really nice job of updating these things quickly for us in real time. Now we could go into this guy and say edit and place mass and get a little bit more serious here with this form altogether, right? So this is where I might add more to that form. Let's see, if we grab that face, we might be able to pull that out. That came from a loft, so I don't want to do that. But let's just say I'm going to grab this as a reference plane, that floor there, and I'm going to draw out some more geometry from that spot. So let's just bring that back. And this will be part of this form that I'm editing, this 3-part form. So let's just take this guy here. We'll say create solid form, and we'll bring that up a little bit further. And we'll see if we can get these to align. Okay, so I've got those lined up. Grab that face there. Get these to align. And then I'm just going to grab the bottom of this guy and pull that down a little bit as well. Alright, so last thing is we take that and apply the material. I believe this was the office portion. And then if we say finish mass, now we've got this new portion that doesn't have the floor in there. Okay, so if I go to that floor there and we say update to face, it carries all the way over. So this functionality is pretty neat. Now the other thing too was this was a separate form. Okay, so if I go back to that mass inside here and I don't want that to have the difference in line work, this is where we would say join inside the mass family. So this one to this one, and now it's actually creating, like we still have that form, we can break it down using our dissolve tool, but by joining it, I've made that all one form element. So you can see when I hit tab, I get the entire thing. Okay, so the join and cut functions do work inside and outside of the mass editor environment, but what you have to consider is if it's a separate element or a separate form, like this guy was, I believe it was this one that we cut using that top form, this one here. Okay, if it's separate in that situation, then we have to cut it in the project environment. But if they come together in the mass editor, right? If it's two forms inside the mass editor inside of one conceptual mass, then we can join them and cut them inside the mass editor. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the other features one last time. We've already taken a look at these floors, but let's cover up these walls or the outside faces with the wall tool. So I've got under the wall tool a wall by face as well. So if we select that, it's going to ask us to choose a wall. Let's just go with this exterior ephes on metal stud for the time being. And when we come in here, you'll notice this guy here, pick by face. And we've seen that before probably, maybe we haven't used it a lot, but it has been there. And so this is what I was talking about, where do I want the wall, or how do I want the wall to intersect with the floors that I've got in here? Okay, so this floor is going right to the outside face of the mass. But what I want that floor to do is go to the outside face of my structural layer. So if that's concrete floor, actually let's change this to something that's got CMU in it. So we'll say exterior CMU insulated. So what I want to do is choose my location line. Okay, so the location line for this should be core face exterior. So I choose that, and then when I grab the face, it's putting that wall in place. So we'll just stick to this one for the time being, and then in the project what I'm going to do is, you can see where that's cutting through. Let's just take a quick look. So go to fine detail. I can see the extent of my mass, and this is on an angle I believe, so it might look a little bit strange here for a second. So let's see how this looks if we cut a section through it. I might not have done it totally right. Okay, so I put that section through, and I can see my wall over here. My elevations, these levels are getting in the way. So let's bring those out. And we can see, all right, so the floor is going still to the outside face of this wall. So this wall, we need to consider what's going on with this guy. All right. So this is an issue right here. We can see the core boundary on the exterior side is the first layer. Okay, so that's concrete masonry units on the outside. That's not really what I was trying to get at. Let's try taking this wall, and we'll replace it with something else. Okay, so brick and CMU on metal stud. That's the outside finish. Let's say brick on CMU. Okay, so now that you've seen that change position, this is essentially what I was after. If we change that detail level to fine, I can see the structural element of this wall is where my floor is actually bearing on. So it's bearing on the structural layer. Okay, so by choosing the right location line, we get this to go to the right layer in this wall. And then this is what I was talking about again with the join and cut features. I can take this wall now, or sorry, this floor and this wall, and now you can see it's actually removing that part of the wall. So now this actually has some bearing on that concrete. Okay, now you can keep doing that. You could grab all of these and do the same thing. It's going to keep going and cutting these out. But what I want to get to is back over here on 3D. How can I maybe modify these when I have a situation like this, right? So if I go to this guy, right click and say, give me the same thing, create similar. And then by using the face feature, I come over to this one. Well, what ends up happening is this wall follows the face of this form. So it's going all the way down here past where I need it to. So in this situation, you can either drag the grip and align it that way. Okay, so you can see that temporary line saying it's lined up. And you'd have to, again, get into the detailing of this, but probably the easiest way to handle this is to go in and say edit profile. And now I can just use my pick lines option and come in here and find some of these other edges that have to be selected if I'm going to use this. Okay, so now I can use my trim extend feature to cut that small portion of that wall out. And now when I hit the green check mark, I've got what I need for that. So I can keep coming in here and wrapping this up. Obviously in here where it goes underneath that, there's some additional space. So I might choose to create another wall, or you might just choose to grab this guy here and edit the profile again, and then add in some of that line work, right? We can go in, pick lines, and start grabbing this as well. There's one underneath. Grab that return. That's probably all we need except for that bottom face. Oh, it's getting a little bit difficult to see that. So then again, we're just trimming these up and filling that in. So it's a really nice tool. I think that this is great how this comes together so easily. And you know, we're still in a very conceptual stage, but I'm actually using the system family tools to get this done. So we've got floors in here. We've got the walls starting to come together if we want to as well. Why don't we take this one here and we'll just hide that for a second. And now I want to put that roof where the top of that element is, right? So if we go to roof, we can say roof by face and then choose these different portions. Okay, so there's one, we say create roof, and now let's put that in. I'll grab this one, create roof, and we should probably be able to join these guys as well. Okay, so now I've got two roofs. They are joined, but you know, you might want to get rid of that line work. So there's this tool here as well, line work. I mean, this is not at presentation level, but just to hide that one line quick, we can just use our line work tool and click on that a couple times and it should go away. Almost there. We're grabbing a whole lot of lines. Oh, I think there's a small gap. Yeah, there's that small gap which isn't letting us do it. So not a big deal. We can grab this one, and again, we can go in and modify that as well. So just taking that one grip, we'll move that over. All right. Okay, what else? So we talked about mass floors, and there's a way of figuring out how much square footage we got on this, but why don't we take a pause here and we'll come back to that and we'll take a look at mass floors, mass floor schedules, and the tag that we can use to represent the schematic layout for this as well. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get into some more of these conceptual modeling tools in a few minutes.